I'll show you in this video how capable the Swiss are today of deploying secret death squads, as the one that tried to assassinate me in 2024 in France. So you'll know they are very capable of that. Only a few decades ago, the Swiss had official death squads that were so secret that its 400 men wore masks at all time and couldn't know each other's identity. I mean, that is Swaziland, the land of secrecy, where everything is secret, and talking too much, as Homie Ross did, will get you in prison for a very long time. Swaziland, from secret Templars to secret bank accounts and secret fundings of dictators, wars, genocides, war criminals, pedophiles, you name it, and all in the name of Swiss secrecy. The official Swiss death squads trained with silenced weapons for silent assassinations and were so secret that not even the government knew about them, as they were unparliamentary, outside governmental control, thus totally illicit and inadmissible in a democracy. But, well, Swaziland is not really a true democracy. So on the right side in this picture you see some of the guns the Swiss death squad was using. At the top, the Heckler & Koch MP5SD silenced submachine gun in caliber 9mm parabellum. Then, in the middle right, the Swiss G150 silenced precision rifle in caliber 10.4mm times 33mm length of the shell, showing the same gun on the left side in an old picture. Then at the bottom right side, the Sturmgewehr 58 in caliber 7.5mm Swiss times 55mm length of the shell. The Swissies are crazy about guns, and they love to ambush defenseless citizens with a maximum amount of firepower, called the Swiss overkill, on soft targets like defenseless families with very young children, as they did with me all the time in Swaziland, in order to intimidate me and to make me shut up. Apparently, this sort of Swiss behavior makes them feel good. In spite of its considerable battalion size of the 400-man Swiss death squad and a true army colonel at the head of the Swiss death squad formations, they kept it secret for half a century until the year 1990. So here you can see the original bunkers of the Swiss death squad and where they were training and conspiring. It looks straight out of a James Bond movie. Well, I mean, the entire internet agrees that these dudes here are supposedly the best in the branch. But in reality, it would be a bit hard to try keep a secret in a group of 400 jaywalkers. The numerous books they themselves publish each year about how good they themselves are will tell you enough. If they're really a secret service or more like a book publishing company. So it's enormous, the amount of books on this company here. I really don't see what is still secret about it. It's absolutely nothing. But who has ever heard about a book on the Swiss Secret Service, right? No one. Now, that's what I call secret. The Swiss Death Squad existed, or not really existed, until 1990 and was founded in 1945. Around 1990, the Soviet Union ended. Therefore, according to Swissy, by lack of enemy, the Swiss Death Squad battalion was disbanded. But today, with a new set of enemies on the horizon, like Islamic terrorism, with Russia being back, and a certain South African historian, do you think Swissy has new reasons to have resuscitated their old death squad battalions for silent assassinations and political murders? Well, yeah, they did it before. All reasons are back. And of course, the Swiss P26 and P27 battalions are back. So here you can read about P26. Here they call it Project 26, but it is not true. I think it's something different. So in the middle of the page, it says they maintained files on 900,000 persons out of a population of 7 million in those days, in 1990. I don't know how many millions there are now in Swaziland. So down below at the page, here it says on November 21st, 1990, Swiss authorities declared the dissolution of P26 since the clandestine organization operated outside of parliamentary and even governmental control. So the government and the parliament, they didn't even know about it. Being an autonomous structure hidden inside the secret military services. So normally, things like MI6 or the CIA, it's under government control. The parliament knows about it, the Senate and all those. But these ones here, nobody knew about it. Completely secret. They didn't even know about each other as they were wearing masks all the time. So here you can see the last colonel. Look at the eyebrows, looks like an owl. Strange name. Oh, apparently the name here, Catalan, it's Venetian. I don't know how he got into Switzerland. So So there were also murder cases. Where was it? International contacts. Here, the murder of Herbert Albert. So they did murder people. And here's also the P27. That was the hit list, so to speak. I read it for you. P26 was backed by P27, a private foreign intelligence agency funded partly by the government and by a special unit of Swiss Army intelligence, which had built up files on nearly 8,000 suspect persons, including leftists, bill stickers, I don't know what that is, Jehovah's Witnesses, people with abnormal tendencies. You remember they did the same with me, you know, they called, how did they call it? I show it in the, I was all over in the Swiss newspapers. And abnormal tendencies. Well, what's normal for them? You know, a criminal Swiss banker, that's normal for them. Anti-nuclear demonstrators. On November 14, the Swiss government hurriedly dissolved P26, the head of which, Edemers, had been paid £100,000 a year. So, you see, they have death squads with silenced sniper rifles. So here you can read about P27, which is the part providing the hit list, the files on people, you know, with who don't fit, who are not obedient enough, you know, to fit into the Swiss society, like being a perfect tool for the bankers. So we got here below, it says Ferdinand Knecht. His code name was James. So here you can read about it. I also made a video about it 10 years ago or even more. So this is in 2013. It was all over in all the national newspapers in Switzerland. So this is in the Tagesanzeiger. I think that's from Zurich. On top it says ein Historiker, left top. That means a historian. And then if you go a little bit down, like now on top, it says ein Südafrikaner. It means a South African. That is me. And those who speak German can read it all here. And it says here in the canton of Bern, in the capital, they talk on top here of the image. It says Querulanten Datenbank. It means they want to make files again, just like the P27, to have a hit list. And Querulante, that's sort of a psychopath, you know, somebody who is like against. It means like queer in German, it means like, you know, being like against. And so that means I made historical videos explaining the Swiss history, the Templars and all that. And then, you know, they say you're a psychopath. And they wanted to make a hit list here, like the P27 and the, you know, to put in action the P26, which they did. They tried to murder me in 2024. And so Datenbank, on top of the page, it says Datenbank. Daten, that means files, and bank, a bank with files. So they into these files, you know, to make like the P27. They had on 900,000 people in Switzerland. They had files, you know, a hit list, those to be eliminated. and yeah, either with their silent sniper rifles, which are not anti-material, but a sniper rifle is anti-personnel. I mean, I was in the army, I was trained in these sort of things. A sniper rifle, a silence rifle, it never is anti-material. Because the impact of the bullet, it makes a hell of a noise, you know, if it impacts like on a radio antenna or whatever, you know, these are the things they're saying, you know. It's absolute nonsense. But if there's an impact in a soft tissue, like in the body, you don't hear it, really. You know, it just absorbs by the body and the blood, and, you know, the shock waves goes over into the blood and everything else. So silence rifles, and I was taught in this in the army, are never being used for anti-material. It's a complete lie, they're saying, you know. So, well, yeah, you can read all about it. And there were many more newspapers all the time, you know. They used my case because it really disturbed them. What I was doing, you know, writing in international newspapers, and many jaywalkers contacted me because I explained how the Swiss are behind the genocide on their people, you know, of the Second World War and all that, and they just wanted to silence me up. And so they tried it with this here, you know, put a psychological, psychiatric stamp on my head, like, you know, to with this corrupt psychiatrist. I made videos about it, and when that didn't help, you know, they tried to silence me up, you know, and they do have these death squads, of which I just gave you all the information, and they have them again. I mean, it's all silent, you know. Even the Swiss people and the government, they didn't even know about it for 50 years. So do you think they know about it now? And they do have them. I mean, they almost killed me in 24. So I put it in the Google Translator here to the right in English, and you see they talk about a database for troublemakers. You know, that's the P27, and they talk about the South African, and well, it's an enormous bunch of lies they're talking here. But I mean, they got political things, you know. The SVP, Swiss Nazi Party, you know, they want to make files, you know, for all sort of persons whom they don't like, you know, and make a hit list. Well, apparently they managed to make the files, you know, and with that hit list they came and visit me in France and shot at me. This is what they're doing. And they did it before, and they do it now. Nobody does a thing against it. So here it says on top, to the right, a database for troublemakers. Well, I'm proud to be a troublemaker, you know. If you are against wars, you know, if you're a historian telling the true story of Switzerland, you know, how they finance Hitler and all this, you know, you're a troublemaker. It's as simple as that. And they kill you. It's a miracle I'm still here. I can't even use my emails. I'd like to contact a lot of people. I can't contact my wife. I can't contact my children because it's very dangerous when I open up my email. So here in this video on the same channel, I explain how in 2024 in France, the current P26 Swiss death squad resuscitated, and they tried to shoot me in France. And this video too, I explain it. I mean, you can see it. They got silent sniper rifles. Not even the parliament knows about it. And nobody cares anyway. You know, I'm repeating this and telling it, and who cares, you know? So here's the title. I made it a year ago. And so maybe one day people will look into it, maybe in 20 years or so. Why the letter P and why 26? Well, first of all, Swaziland has 26 cantons, but it is not that. Why would they call it after the 26 cantons? There's no reason. Not even a Swissy would do this. There's another reason. Well, I'll explain that to you. As the letter P is the 16th letter in the alphabet, so it basically says 1626. And in 1626, Switzerland was saved by the Treaty of Monzon that saved Swaziland from being dragged into the very devastating 30-year war from 1618 to 1648, as troubles between Protestants and Catholics were raging in the Swiss canton of Grisons, in German called the Bündner Wehren. So here in the website you can see about it. It's called at the top Bündner Wehren. The Wehren, it means troubles. And Bündner, it's from Graubünden. Later on, here in the text you can see the word. I can't show it to you because my cursor doesn't show anymore all of a sudden in the video editor. So, but in English, the French name is being used, Grisen, as I just used it before. So Graubünden is Grisen and Bündner, it's all the same thing. So, and this is what I'm going to show you. And this meant almost the end of Switzerland. But Switzerland was saved in the year 1626. That's why P26. So you can read it all for yourselves. It's between the Catholics and the Protestants. And here, it says here in blue, the Peace Treaty of Monzon. Where is it? In Italy, I think, or in Spain, Monzon. Between France and Spain, confirmed the political and religious independence of the Valtellina. The Valtellina, that's the valley somewhere in the Grisen canton. So you see, on March the 5th, 1626. So they also talk about an assassin hired here by the local aristocracy. So they got this P26 because to achieve the thing in 1626, they had to do a lot of secret assassinations, and with Swiss mercenary death squads. And I guess there was a lot of butchering and killing going on, and that's why they kept the name P26. So now I'm going to show you the Monzon peace treaty. So here is the Treaty of Monzon, and on March the 5th, 1626. Very important for, it says ending the Valtellina War. Here we can see Valtellina. It's an alpine valley in the canton of Grisons or Graubünden. And in this canton of Graubünden, or Grisons in English, from the French, Grison, this is where Davos, where the WEF is. It's probably also related. It's all related. So in a way you could say that the WEF, Davos, is also related to P26 or 1626. Today, Swissy presents P26 as some harmless group of Swiss housewives and grandfathers trained to shoot telephone poles with their sophisticated silenced assassin rifles. In the army, I was taught the purpose of sound-suppressed weapons, which is solely anti-personnel and never anti-material, for several reasons, like the energy of the bullet being too low due to the subsonic speed needed to suppress the supersonic boom in order to be able to silence it. In order to teach us, they let us shoot at diverse objects with the various weapons fitted with a silencer and adequate low-speed ammo. And when, with these perfectly soundless weapons, the bullet's impact on a hard, solid object, it was so loud that it sounded like someone was shooting at us. So there's absolutely no use for using a silenced weapon for anti-material uses, meaning that the secret Swiss P26 unit was in fact an assassination death squad intended to liquidate all enemies of the state, both foreign and domestic, both internally and abroad. Do not let them mislead you, and look at the facts, how the Swissies are very capable of being organized stone-cold assassins. In Europe, the very first and the very last innocent woman being branded as a witch and executed as such happened in Swaziland. That started and also ended the 400-year witch hunts in Europe. So here it is in the AI. I read it for you. Switzerland's first systemic mass witch hunts began during the Valais witch trials in 1428. Valais, that's the canton where is Sion, like the Priory of Sion, and the elders of the Priory of Sion. And were also all these 40 kids burned on the January 1st of this year. That's all in Valais. Most of the Swiss guards in the Vatican, most of them are from Valais, because it's Catholic. And there's also the only Swiss Guard museum in the world. So the Valais witch trials resulted in hundreds of executions of both men and women across the Alps. And the first mass hunt, the Valais witch trials, spanning from 1428 to 1434, marked the beginning of systematic state-sanctioned witch hunts in Switzerland and all of Europe. So you see here the European witch hunts, it started in Swaziland. So now I go on. One of the earliest state trials in 1429, the town of Fribourg, became one of the first places in Europe where secular political authorities, so it was not the church, prosecuted and executed individuals for witchcraft. The last executions in Europe, you might be thinking of Anna Guldi, who was beheaded in Glarus, that's another canton, in 1782. She is widely documented as the last person to be legally executed for witchcraft in Europe. So we see here, the Swiss killers, they started it and they began it. You know, the murdering of innocent women. So you must change your idea of Swaziland. I mean, they're quite capable of death squads and these sort of things, you know, murdering people and hitmen, and as they did with me. They're very capable of it. There's so many examples in history, you know, financing dictators and the Second World War and Adolf and the Hamas. And this here, the witch hunt started in Swaziland and it ended in Swaziland. So they're very capable of killing people, and they're in a very organized and collective way. So here at the top you can read it, the Valais witch trials. And I'll read it for you. The Valais witch trials consisted of a witch hunt and a series of witch trials which took place in the Valais, the House of Savoy. You remember the Prince of Savoy? And the Prince Bishopric of Sion, the Priory of Sion, the Elders of Sion. This is where it is, people. Today part of Switzerland. Beginning in 1428. The Valais witch hunt is the first of systematic campaigns which would become much more widespread in the decades to come, initiating the period of witch trials in Europe. It all started in Sion in Swaziland, people. This is not a neutral, innocent country who never done anything wrong. I mean, look at the P26. They're walking around with sniper rifles, with silencers, and then they say it's anti-material. No silent sniper rifle has ever been conceived for anti-material. It's anti-personal. The whole country is anti-personal. So also the last innocent witch executed in Europe was also in Switzerland in the year 1782. And her name was Anna Guldi. And remember how I already told you that the book they were using, the handbook, the Malleus Maleficarum, or the Witch's Hammer, was written by two Swiss, Inquisitores Heinrich Kramer and Inquisitores Jacobus Sprenger. You can read about it at the top. Anna Guldi, I read it for you. Anna Guldi, also Guldin, born October 24th, 1734, executed June 13th, 1782. That'll be soon. That's June 13th. That's when the World Soccer starts in America. What do you know? Coincidence? Probably not. So what will happen on that day? So she was a Swiss housemaid who was one of the last, well, she was the last person to be executed for witchcraft in Europe and in the canton of Glarus. So also in these days, they had like P26 death squads, burning women in another way, not with silent rifles, or like the ones going after Homie Ross in France, in another country, but here in another way, just grabbing the woman by the hair and torture them, burn them, probably rape them, and anything else. This country has been doing this since ever they exist. Founded by the Templars in 1291. They have always been murdering people, financing wars, dictators, genocides. It's the center of evil. It's the base of all evil. So here you see a sign in the town of Sankt Gallen in Switzerland in the east, of another, the last woman. Her name was Anna Hella, and she was burned in 1691. You see these things everywhere. So I read it for you in German. Letzte Frau, die in der Stadt St. Gallen als Hexe verbrannt wurde. And on the right-hand side it says Swiss made. So St. Gallen, by the way, I already told you that, the father of the worldwide eugenics, that means you can, like in a concentration camp, it's like you go left, you can live, and you go to the right, you must die, That's eugenics, It's a teaching, like some people are allowed to live on and others should die. They are like useless eaters. Like they see Homie Ross, they see me as a useless eater. So, sometimes I don't even eat at all, so what are they talking about? So, St. Gallen, and you see it's still going on, In those days, they did eugenics in 1691. They burned the women, like Anna Hella. Then there was Ernst Rudin, the grandfather of eugenics worldwide in the 20th century. They just go on and they go on, because the whole world believes their story, the myth of the country being neutral and clean and innocent, never done anything wrong. So nobody's ever going to clean it up. So history teaches us that the Swiss have perfectionized organized mass murder on more than one occasion. And the Swiss had official secret P26 death squads not very long ago. So here you can see that Ernst Rudin. He was at the top, you can see, it's in French, but you can find it in English. It's in 1874, he was born in Sankt Gallen, Saint-Gall, as they say it in French. And he died in Munich in 1952. He never had any problems. So, and then it says, aperçu intelligence artificielle. Ernst Rudin was a Swiss-born German psychiatrist. They made him German, but he's Swiss. The Germans, they get all the blame for it, but he was Swiss. A geneticist and a primary architect of Nazi eugenics. You see, St. Gallen. So I've got all this stuff in my head, So if I see like burning a woman in St. Gallen, it goes in my head. It goes, like that. Ernst Rudin, that happened in St. Gallen. This happened and this and this. So I go on. As a founder of psychiatric genetics, he provided the scientific justification for mass forced sterilization under the Action T4 murder program, which ended in the entire whole catch. I can't say the word, I'm sorry, because otherwise I get censored and I see there's the YouTube stuff under my video, which I don't want. So I call it the whole catch. They caught the jaywalkers, they caught them and put them in a hole. Well, the forced sterilization, the euthanasia, racial hygienics. He also murdered many people in Swaziland itself. Oh, look, there's a picture of him. I already talked about him in my video, The Swiss Beast. I already talked about him 20 years ago or 16 years ago when I started YouTube. Zankaln, where the last innocent woman was burned at the stakes in, 1692 in the town of Zankaln. Something wrong in the state of, don't say Denmark, in the state of Swaziland. Therefore, it is a reasonable assumption that Swiss death squads are very active today. Personally, from my own experience in 2024, I can assure you they are there and active. P26 has been reenacted. In science, in order to find the common denominator, you need to compare. Just as in history, you need to compare to find the whodunit. This is called comparative analysis. So on top in the image here in red, it says comparative analysis. And then there are the two circles, like the vesica piscis. And on the left side, we got Batman, and it says he's a human, has a black costume, he's a CEO, he's rich. And then on the right, in the right circle, it says Superman, who is an alien, a blue costume, and he works as a journalist. And in the middle, in the oval, it shows what they have in common. And they're both heroes from DC, which I suppose that's Washington, the capital of the US. And both possess secret identities, and they're both in the Justice League. And this is very important to do so in order to find the mystery man to the right, or the mystery idea, or the X factor. So let's have a look through some comparative analysis if we can find more of those P followed by a number organizations like the Swiss P26 death squads, who are in the very same business of liquidating people around the globe. And yes, in Italy, there was the notorious P2 death squad, who in 1982 had the banker Roberto Calvi hanged from Blackfriars Bridge in London. And P2 bombed a train in Bologna, Italy in 1980, killing 85 innocent passengers. So to the left there is the Bologna train station in northern Italy, and on the right is Roberto Calvi. the Italian P2 was very much connected to Swaziland, which I will prove in this video. Coming back to this picture here, in the white is a so-called Venn diagram, and it says the P2 on the left side of Italy, and of the Venn diagram on the right side it says P26. It's the same name, you know. And in order to deduce to the right side the X factor being seen through the keyhole, we need to compare. And therefore, in the middle, in the oval, there are the things that the P2 and the P26 have in common. And this is just a few of the many more things they have in common, because there wasn't any more place. So I read it for you. Both are secret. On both sides, there were a lot of murders. Both were supposed to be part of Gladio. That's the Latin word for a sword. And they say it was a sort of stay behind of NATO, which is a complete lie, which I'll explain to you. Both are connected to Gstaad in Swaziland. Both were death squads. Both were unparliamentary. I couldn't write it all down, so I just wrote down unparliament. And both were illicit, both had silenced weapons, and both were acting in the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. So they're very much alike, right? There's a connection here, very strong. So comparing the Swiss P26 with the Italian P2 makes you wonder how many P-numbered death squads are there. Did P2 and P26 death squads know each other while working together? As their names P with a number are similar, both operated around the same time as a so-called stay-behind Gladio secret army. Both are secret death squads trained in assassinations and using silenced weapons. Both are unparliamentary, illicit, and both seem to be connected to the Swiss town of Gstaad. You remember how I made this video on Gstaad in 2023 about the Prince of Savoy, Victor Emmanuel, hiding in Gstaad from being prosecuted for the murder of Dirk Hammer in 1978. And, well, the killer prince was a member of P2. And guess what? Also, the Swiss P26 was headquartered in Gstaad, in a bunker called Schweizerhof, in English, the Swiss court, sounding very noble, of the vertical rule. Like the Prince of Savoy being the successor to the Italian crown, being the son of the last king of Italy, and vertical rule, both P2 and P26 were and still are, and therefore the reason for being unparliamentary in this internal war of Pharaoh's vertical rule kingdom and their horizontal rule republic. So in this picture, it is written the Swiss court, because on the left-hand side, the bunker of P26, it was officially called the Swiss court. In Swiss German, das Schweizer Hof. Hof, it means court, and Schweizer, it means Swiss. And so it's written here, the Swiss court of P2 and P26. So on the right side, you see all the way to the right, you see the killer prince, Prince Victor Emmanuel, probably with his grandson or one of his grandchildren. And I'll explain you, he was not only a member of P2, but he was P2. I'll explain that in a minute. So you got all these royals getting together, both P2 and P26. And the prince was living in Gstaad, where he was hiding for murder. The Swiss court bunker was also in Gstaad of the P26. And it's all about royals. It's in the name everywhere. And they're hiding in Gstaad. So, well, you're not gonna tell me that the killer prince, member of P2, living in Gstaad, that he didn't go to the Swiss court bunker of P26, also in Gstaad? So you're not going to tell me that he didn't know about this? Of course he did. It's all connected. Just open up your eyes, you know. So here's about P2 in Italian Propaganda 2. And it says on top of the page, at the beginning, it said there was a Freemasonic lodge, which is not true. This is the internal war, and I'll tell you more about it in a minute. Within this internal war, the vertical rule, who want to bring back the monarchy, and this is why the prince was in it, and many other princes, they used the horizontal rule, because the horizontal rule, they are ruling. And Freemasonry, by definition, is horizontal. So they got no other way than pretending to be a Freemasonic lodge, which is horizontal, in order to infiltrate and take over the power and the state and the government, and so to bring back the kingdom. And this is why the Prince of Savoy, the killer prince, well, he was in it. You know, look on top of the page here. There he is, Prince Victor Emmanuel, the son of the last king of Italy. You know, nobody understands this. I'm actually the only one in the world who is explaining this. And which is a very dangerous thing to do, actually. So, and there's some more here I wanted to show you. Well, you can read it yourselves. And, okay, there it is. About the Bologna massacre, attacking the state and to weaken the state, so there will be a revolution, civil war, and then the old kingdom takes over again. That was the thing, you know. And then there was Roberto Calvi, but I suppose the horizontal rule guys, they found it out, and then opposite of the Temple Church, Knights Templars, traditionally horizontal, they whacked them, and leaving a message at the same time. I'll tell you more about it in a minute. So it's the same as in espionage. You know, there are traitor agents, double agents, and a lot of betrayal. And these sort of things, Well, I guess these were all members of the P2. A lot of them. They were really infiltrating it, in order to bring the King of Italy back on the throne. And we see the same things going on in France and in Germany recently. I'll tell you more about it in a minute. And of course, Tupo. He's from a line of Scandinavian kings. So here we can read about it in the AI. I'll read it for you. Prince Vittorio Emanuele, son of Italy's last king, was a prominent member of the illegal, secretive Italian Freemasonry Lodge Propaganda 2, P2. This underground network, active during the late 20th century, orchestrated high-level corruption and sought to manipulate Italian politics. His involvement with the P2 Lodge, which was dismantled and declared a criminal organization in 1982, was one of many controversies that defined his life in exile. Here are a few key details about his connection to the group and his broader life. The P2 network. The Propaganda 2 P2 Lodge operated as a pseudo-Freemasonry shadow government. So you see, it's not really Freemasoners, it's pseudo-Freemasonry. And this is why it got forbidden. Because normally the Freemasoners, they do not get forbidden. But I'll explain that to you all in a minute. It was heavily involved in political manipulation and various financial scandals. Like the banker, Mr. Calvi, who got hanged from the Blackfriars Bridge. They called him God's banker. Prince Vittorio Emanuele was among more than 900 prominent members, which notably included politicians, military leaders, and financiers, etc. Born in Naples, he left Italy as a 9-year-old child after the 1946 national referendum abolished the Italian monarchy. He lived most of his life in Switzerland. There you go, in Gstaad. His public life was marked by several serious legal issues, including a high-profile 1978 firearms incident off Corsica. He murdered a young guy. They call it a firearms incident. And a 2006 arrest on corruption charges, though he was cleared of the most severe charges in court. And there's the Netflix documentary, The King Who Never Was. I saw it. It's worth seeing. And so they call it just a high-profile 1978 firearms incident. He killed a man. He never went to prison. It's just like the other one, Mr. Pepe, the pedophile prince. They can do whatever they want. We're still it's still medieval times, eh? And their base is Swaziland. So here you can read some more about it. Vittorio Emanuele, the Prince of Naples. So I read it here on the top. Prince Vittorio Emanuele of Savoy, Prince of Naples. His full name Vittorio Emanuele Alberto Carlo Teodoro Umberto Bonifacio Amadeo. Forget about it. So he was born February 12, 1937, and was the son of Umberto II, the last king of Italy, and Marie-Josée of Belgium. Vittorio Emanuele also used the title of Duke of Savoy and claimed the headship of the House of Savoy. Again, this is not a house to live in, it's a royal house. So you can read the rest yourself. And to the right, right down, it says he died in Geneva, Switzerland. And here the Duke of Savoy. Of course, he was exiled in 1946. The horizontal guys in 1946, they kicked all the vertical rule, they kicked them out of Italy. And so here it is, the death of Dirk Hammer on the top. He was 19 years old. The prince just shot him. He never went to prison. He went to Gstaad in Swaziland. And because Switzerland is neutral for Pharaoh's nobility, you know, they can always seek refuge in Swaziland and nothing will ever happen to them. This is what basically the Swiss neutrality, what it means. It's not for us, the dumb slaves, it's just for Pharaoh's nobility. And Dirk Hammer, he was the son of Dr. Gerd Hammer, the guy who wrote the Germanic medicine, which is another story. And he was apparently, that says he didn't like the jaywalkers apparently. And so here you see his son at the bottom, Emanuele Filiberto. He's the Prince of Venice. I'll tell you some more about that. You see on the right side down, the House of Savoy, they got a Swiss cross in it, which has a reason. So, the Killer Prince, P2, in Gstaad, Swaziland. And of course, meeting up with P26, all of them in Gstaad. Now, the son of the Killer Prince was, of course, born in Switzerland and also lives in Gstaad. His name is Filiberto, Prince of Venice. So in this picture, to the right, you see the 19-year-old kid who was just murdered by the Killer Prince, whom you see on top in that picture on the right side, hanging over the furniture, in their house in Gstaad, Swaziland. And to the left, you see the Prince of Venice. Funny enough, the surname of the P26 commander from 1979 until 1990, Colonel Ephraim Catalan, whom you can see here, also derives from Venice. And I suppose we know now why that is, eh? So, the owl, look at the eyebrows. Looks like an owl. I like owls. So, here we can read about it. No, it's only in German, I think. Yeah, it's only in German. But anyway, it says P26. You can put it yourself into the translation machine if you want. It says he was the commander from a certain moment. Of course, there were also other commanders. And it says he was a colonel. Like here on top, in blue, it says Oberst. Obersten means a colonel. And everywhere it says P26, Mr. Catalan. Oh, now let's have a look where the name is from, eh? So, there we go in Wikipedia. Catalan, I'll read it for you. Catalan is an Italian surname derived from Venetian. There you go, Venice. From the Venetian Catalan. And some notable people are Alessandro Catalan, an Italian television personality, and Maurizio Catalan. He was also an artist. And we had the commander for a very long time of the Swiss P26. So we got, again, as the common denominator, we got Venice. The name is from Venice, P26, and the other guy from the P2, the Killer Prince, or his son is the Prince of Venice. And they're all grouping together in Gstaad. Venice, Gstaad, P2, P26, murdering people and just get off with it. Nobody punishes them. That's a bit too much, a bit too many common denominators, like Venice, Gstaad, and all the P murder squads, all grouping together in Swaziland. Now, what's going on here? Therefore, we might assume that the P of P2, P26, and God knows how many more there are, stands for prince in this internal war of the princes and their principalities, wanting to be back on the throne, and who therefore create unparliamentary secret armies with a P, sabotaging the Republic and its state. Just as we could see in Germany in 2022, possibly being P13 for Heinrich the 13th, Prinz Reuß der 13th, King of Germany. So on top you see in Roman ciphers it says P13. And you see the map of Prussia. So he thinks he's the king of Prussia and that part of Germany, or most of Germany. And below it says Prinz, which is prince in English. Heinrich, so that means Henry. So it says Prince Heinrich the 13th, Mr. P13, and who is of course organized with P2 and P26 and the Prince of Venice and the Killer Prince and also the pedophile prince, of course, and some other ones. They want to bring back the monarchy. So here you can read about it. It says on top, Heinrich, Henry, that means the 13th, Prinz Reuß, the Prince Reuß. So I have no doubt that his code name is P13 in this international conspiracy of the vertical rule against the horizontal rule. And of course, they don't want to bring back a constitutional monarchy, but they want to bring back an absolute monarchy. So you can see a picture of him. He's also apparently anti-jaywalker. Of course, because the jaywalker nobility, not the normal slaves, jaywalkers, no. The jaywalker nobility, they had no other possibility than to gain power in Europe after they came out of the Middle East, running after their slaves. They had no other possibility than to have the horizontal rule, because in the vertical rule they didn't have any land, no castles, so they conspired against the vertical rule European nobility, mostly German, and which ended into the whole catch and the whole thing, you know. Which actually, well, the German slaves, neither the jaywalker slaves, have no idea what's really going on. Right? So, and on top it says Reuss was arrested by the German Federal Police in December 2022 due to his alleged leadership in the 2022 German coup d'etat plot. So, you know, from horizontal to vertical. So here it says he's from the house of Reuss. In the family they have a lot of castles, like this one here. Now it's a theater. Here is another castle, Talwitz Castle. And you can read it yourselves. And of course, the vertical nobility, they're using the dumb slaves of Germany to do the work for them, who have absolutely no idea what it's really about. They're just being misused, just as in the Second World War and the whole catch, everything, doing it for the vertical nobility, in fact. So here's another castle of his. They have the house of Reuss, they have many castles. And there's probably a lot more, but well, the process, it's still going on. Apparently, this will take, you know, like a decade or more, you know, and then still no. They wait until he is dead, and then nobody talks about it anymore, because Pharaoh's nobility, both vertical and horizontal, the last thing they want is to have the dumb slaves of this earth to know about this, because then it would end up into a global insurgency. And this is what they want to avoid at all costs. To the left, it says Propaganda 2, and to the right, you see the River Thames, the London Needle, and Roberto Calvi. P2 was founded in 1877 as a Freemasonic lodge, who are, of course, horizontal. And today's system is horizontal. Therefore, vertical rule princes have no other possibility to regain power than to use the existing horizontal system in order to bring back a vertical rule kingdom. As we can see today being done by Putin and Trump, who both destroy the horizontal political system of the Republic. And as we can clearly see in the picture, Donny and Vladdy are the best of friends. just having the various dumb slaves fight each other. The Italian P2 leader Licio Gelli escaped to Swaziland in 1981, got arrested and was helped to escape the Swiss prison in 1983. And I have no doubt whatsoever that P26 helped the P2 leader to escape Swiss prison. This really proves the Swiss P2 with P26 connection and the Swiss involvement in the 1980 Bologna bombing, the murder of Roberto Calvi from Blackfriars Bridge, and all the other horrible things that happened, like the Gstaad cover-up by the Swiss of the P2 Killer Prince murder of a young German, and so on and so forth. There seems to be no end to the endless Swiss crimes against humanity. So here you can read about Licio Gelli, and here on top it says, how he got arrested in Swaziland, here on top. And here, early life, Gelli was born in Pistoia, Tuscany. Well, Tuscany, that's where the Etruscans lived, who founded Rome. And the Etruscans, archaeologists found proofs that the Etruscans, they believed in Isis and all the Egyptian gods, and also using sort of hieroglyphs and all these sort of things. So in Tuscany, there's really a concentration of pharaohs, of the Egyptians, who then later on founded Rome. As I've been telling you, Rome was founded by the pharaohs, and it was ruled by the pharaohs. He was everywhere, this guy. CIA activities and P2 list. And here, look, imprisonment in Switzerland, escape and return to Switzerland. I'll read it for you. On the run, Gelli escaped to Switzerland, where he was arrested in 1982. Well, that's 2 years after the Bologna bombing. You see, it's all connected. While trying to withdraw tens of millions of dollars in Geneva. I mean, where did they get all the money from, right? Detained in the modern high-security prison of Champ-Dollon, near Geneva, he managed to escape in 1983. And he had a Swiss lawyer, and they even found the guy who helped him escape, a Swiss guy, in the prison. I read it somewhere in some Swiss-German things, So this is, how the world is being ruled, the centers of power, like Tuscany, Swaziland. And bunch of murderers. In 2018, the so-called Swiss historian Titus Meyer did the usual Swiss whitewashing tradition. of the P26 scandal, just as the 2002 Swiss whitewashing Berger report, officially declaring that Switzerland was completely innocent of financing the whole catch and Mr. Adolf, after the whole catch jaywalker lawsuits of 1997 against Switzerland. Always the same Swiss MO, modus operandi, of official whitewashing. And in fact, the Swiss really said in numerous newspapers that I, Homie Ross, am not a real historian, and that only the Swiss are the real historians. You can read it black on white. I already shown it to you. So here it says the Berger Commission. I'll read it for you just a little bit because it's really not worth reading. Yeah, the Berger Commission in Bern was formed by the Swiss government. So I repeat, they were formed by the Swiss government. And on December 1996, it took them 8 years, I think, or 6 years, until 2002. In the wake of the then ongoing World Jaywalker Congress lawsuit against Swiss banks, accused of withholding valuables belonging to the whole catch victims. It is also known as the ICE. There we got ICE again, like the Swiss snow-top mountains. And ICE, it means Independent Commission of Experts. So look at it, how it's contradictory. In the beginning they said the Berger report was formed by the Swiss government. And then they say it's independent. So you really don't have to read the rest, it's absolute nonsense. It says it's on Wikipedia, so you can look it up yourselves. It's just rubbish. So here you see it on YouTube. Down at the right side it says Project 26, P26. Well, it's not for project, it's more for prints. And you see their anti-personnel weapons. They are not anti-material, forget about that. It's all the Swiss distraction. Here's the title, and it's on an organization called the Swiss Army Museum. Verein Schweizer Armee Museum. And how long does it go? It goes 1.5 hours. It's nice pictures, and that's all. It's not worth it. They make it official. They say, well, this guy's a historian, and only the Swiss are the real historians, yes, and it's independent. Well, nevertheless, it was organized by the Swiss government, but it's independent anyway. It's an ICE, as they say. Can you believe it? Like here, you can read about it. In 2013, in a newspaper called Der Bund, like in Nazi typography, Nazi letters, it says Historiker in between brackets, meaning a historian who's not a real historian. They're talking about me. Here you see it. It says here, ein Südafrikaner, a South African, who's not a historian. At the time I was 51 years old, it says. Probably right. Well, you can read it yourselves. And here as well, like Historiker in the middle in blue. So, they're saying only the Swiss with their bogus Berger report and all the so-called independent reports about the P26 and the whole catch, only the Swiss are the real historians. Nobody else. Homie Ross is not a historian. And because I'm not allowed to talk about Swiss history, they even sued me in court. I had to go to prison for years and years, 5.5 years altogether. Which you can read here. I already showed you many times. I'll just show it in a minute. So here you can read it. I just translated it for you with the machine, the AI. So on the top right, it says a historian, like from the newspaper article, in between brackets. So I am not a real historian. Only the Swiss are. And if you dare to criticize their sort of real Swiss history, you go to prison for a long time. So just make it official. Just like their official Berger report and their official P26 reports. I tell you, the Swiss are no historians. They are cleaners. Just after a murder, the cleaner is coming up, and it is a murder. It's genocide they're doing. So here on the right side in blue, it also said, here it says, the Austrian tabloid Krone, it's a newspaper, subsequently quoted the 51-year-old South African as a historian in between brackets. So according to Swissy, I'm not a real historian. So, well, you guys go listen to the Berger report and the Swiss independent P26 reports, and because only the Swiss are the real historians, right? And this is what the whole world believes anyway. Yeah, this is from the court. I didn't even go there anymore, it was useless, Here you see another 6 points at the top. You see the address where I was living in the Jurassic Canter, and it's all a lie. All these 6 points you see at the top, they just put things together, to get me away, to put me away. And here on top you see the video films on YouTube. Well, this is what it's about. It's about, and they even write it down, You cannot criticize Swiss history. And most of all, don't do it on YouTube. Here in blue, you see it again, YouTube. And if you do so, as I did, you go to prison. Because the only true history, Swiss history, is in the Berger report and the P26 report by the government, but they say it's independent anyway, So here at the bottom, you see the dates. It says Vollzugsbeginn. So it says July 16th, and they arrested me on July 16th. In front of my 3-year-old daughter, who was crying and crying, there were cops everywhere, as if I, like they were arresting a terrorist. Well, they don't arrest a terrorist, they arrest historians. So that was in 2015. And the end of the prison sentence would be more than a year later. And already done years and years in prison by this time in Swaziland. So this is what they do, So, you go listen to the Swiss real historians then, huh? So already here, 11 years ago, already talked about it, asking for help everywhere, sending letters everywhere, to France, to everywhere. And nobody did a thing. Now we are about 16 years later, and the Swissy still goes on. So you see this video is from May 16, 2015. and there was a 2 months, May, June, 2 months before they arrested me again in front of my little girl and my 12-year-old son on July the 16th, exactly 2 months before. So, the more you talk in Swaziland, the more you criticize them, and even the more you ask for help, the worse it gets. Because 2 months later, they had another 2 months to get all their lies together and make it official like the Berger report. And they came and hold me up again. Another time for more than a year in prison. And they want money. They wanted 20,000 Swiss francs, which we didn't have. They want money. It's like a ransom. It is a ransom. It's a mafia. It's the biggest mafia in the world, called Swaziland. And also here in this video from 12 years ago, you see in the middle the date here, 2011. So I tried as much as possible, to put their documents and the proofs of everything on YouTube. After I've been writing more than 1,000 letters, international, everywhere. And the more you ask help, the more you open your mouth, they say you're a troublemaker. Ein Querulant. And they even want to make a database, the P27 database. It's only about power, terror, money, wealth, controlling the world. That's Swaziland. So here you see it's on the other channel here. This video is from 2014. I started doing this on YouTube in 2010. So now we're 16 years later. No help. Here it says, please someone help. Well, it's too late. Forget about it. I don't need your help anymore. It's too late anyway. Nobody helped. And please don't call this number. Forget about it. It's too late. The whole system is rotten. P2 member Robert Calvi, hanged from Blackfriars Bridge, was the president of the Ambrosiano Bank, also called the Vatican Bank, and Temple Church of the Horizontal Rule Knights Templars as the killer's signature out of Swaziland, right next to the body of the P2 member hanging from Blackfriars Bridge when Swissy came knocking at his door. Well, I can tell you this. The Swiss Gestapo never knocked at my door, but just entered without knocking. Both P2, P26 and the German P13 of the vertical rule betrayed the Templars' horizontal rule. For this betrayal, heads had to roll, like Roberto Calvi or Swiss Colonel Herbert Albot, because misusing the Templars' horizontal rule system by the vertical monarchist guys is considered to be betrayal and high treason. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Donny and Vladdy dangle from Blackfriars Bridge in the near future for the very same reason of conspiring against the horizontal values of the Republic. So yes, the Swiss P26, the Italian P2 and the German P13 are similar organizations with a similar name, same setup, same goals, and very much connected through the motherland in the Alps in places like Gstaad and Davos. In the new horizontal system of the Republic, the princes have become the kings. And the kings of the former feudal vertical rule have become the princes. Therefore, would-be King of Italy, Victor Emmanuel, is a prince now, and probably stands for Prince number 2, for P2, or P2, for Principe 2. And I wonder who's today's P1? Who is today's Prince number 1? Anyway, in Germany there is Prinz 13 for Prince 13 or P13, who wanted to be the new Emperor of Germany while using the Reichsbürger movement, literally meaning citizens of the empire. As P13 and his vertical fantasies became very dangerous for the horizontal establishment in this pharaonic internal war, so the horizontal dudes have put him in prison, where he still is today, kept in the dungeon, so to speak. I suppose Prince 26 or P26 of Switzerland could have been the Swiss Colonel Herbert Albert, here to the left, who on April 18th, 1990, got ritually sacrificed with a mysterious symbol on his dead body, at the same time when P26 got discovered and disbanded. And here on the right side you see Willy Brandt, who was at the time the German Chancellor. And Herbert Albert, he was a pinkless killer. And this is what pinkless killers like, uniforms to impress the other guys and rub their asses together in a uniform, like the Nazis did, And so they also love the hierarchy, which is that thing when the lights go out. The hierarchy is like, oh, shall I dominate you? Are you going to dominate me tonight? His dead body was found in Liebefeld, Bern, Switzerland, where also Kim Jong-un used to live and go to school, spending his entire youth there in Liebefeld. The ritualistic symbols on the colonel's body look like this, here on the right side. It was in the newspapers at the time, hoping that somebody would find out, what it was. But okay, Homie Ross wasn't there yet, so I took a mirror to see what the inversed speech looked like, because the evil that runs this world always invert the normal, like the Adam and Steve sort of thing, thus very much related to Mr. Albert of P26. And the mirrored writing on P26's stomach said Yuma, which in Japanese folklore are supernatural creatures or mutants native to the Dark Kingdom, who steal human energy similar to the youth elixir discussed in this video here. And in fact, only 8 years later, after the murder on the colonel in 1990, so we arrive in 1998, the stem cells were discovered and isolated. Liebefeld, where Colonel Albert was ritually sacrificed, is part of Bern, the capital of Switzerland, where also this horrible statue stands, and where evil rules in the motherland of all evil in the Alps. So the video is here on the very same channel, being one of the videos I made on the youth elixir, which I already did 6 years ago, 6 years before this one. So here once more on the left side in the mirror, you see a Y, then a U and an O and an M and an A. From the right side, which was written on his stomach. And you might say on the left side that the U and the A might be interchanged, because the internet in Japanese, it says first the O and then the U for Yuma, meaning a demon, a shapeshifter, or a devil. But, you know, in the pronunciation, it doesn't really matter, you know, if you say Yuma or Yuoma, something like that, you know. And anyway, it's Japanese, so the Latin letters, it's an interpretation of the Japanese characters anyway. So Yoma or Yuma, that's what it is. It's Japanese for a demon, and it's so much related to what really happened. And, you know, the demons, they know things that their victims and or the bodies which they possess, they don't even realize, and they don't know it. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that Mr. Albot knew about all these things, you know, unless he's in a demonized state. Then the demon takes over, or the guy who killed him, or maybe both, or the whole clan. Anyway, these are the kind of people who are being ruled by, and they love the hierarchy, you know, like, shall I dominate you, or you want to dominate me, sort of thing, you know, the inversed speech of Adam and Steve. So it says at the top, in Japanese folklore, Yuma translates to phantom, demon, beast, or monster. It is essentially a subcategory of yokai, a broad catch-all term for supernatural creatures, spirits, and mysterious phenomena. While yokai can be playful or neutral, Yuma are generally viewed as malevolent or dangerous. I mean, he was killed, in a Jap way, with like a harakiri, with this bayonet in his stomach. That's quite dangerous, as they say, quite the Yuma sort of thing. And I go on here, Yuma in context. You know, now we got also this manga stuff, you know, and it all comes back, all the old folklore. So Yuma in context, the meaning, the kanji for Yuma combines bewitching, calamity, and specter, demon. And folklore versus media. In traditional Japanese mythology, terms like bakemono, shapeshifters, that's quite modern again, or mononoke, vengeful spirits, were used interchangeably before being grouped under yokai Today, humor is often used in English discussions when specifically referring to the dark, monstrous, or demonic enemies found in anime, manga, and gaming. So in the manga, it all gets back, And apparently, in these end times, there are more and more demons, and the more and more it becomes obvious, all in the open, which we see with the mangas. So this is what he had written on his stomach, and it definitely says in their inversed speech what they like so much in the demon world. It said humor. Also, the way Albot was murdered is quite harakiri-like, as he was stabbed in the stomach with his own big Swiss Army bayonet. Altogether, a lot of Jap stuff in the equation. His surname Albot derives from the old German Alp for elf and bald for bold or brave. Like the brave elves fighting the demonic Yuma, and apparently lost the battle. So here it says the etymology of the name Albot. I'll read it for you at the top. The surname Albot is of Central European origin, typically rooted in historical regions of Germany and Poland. It is derived from the Old High German roots Alb, meaning elf, and Bald, meaning bold or brave. Together, the name translates to bold elf or brave elf, likely connecting its original bearers to ancient folklore or mythology. So now it's all together the bold elf and Yuma, or Yuma Albot, the demons and the bold elves. Now, why would this so-called P26 and P2 Gladio P army, supposedly for the good of Europe, against those terrible Soviets, why would they go on a killing spree, killing innocent civilians? They, on the contrary, were supposed to protect. 85 dead in Bologna, 1980, 28 murdered in Belgium in 1982 and 1985, and some more attacks that could barely be the work of Gladio stay behind fighting the Soviets. Well, the aim of the attacks was the Republic, that happens to be horizontal and very much hated by the vertical dudes who, in fact, did it, and who later on replaced the Gladio terrorist attacks through the Islamist terrorist attacks out of the very same reason, to return to the vertical rule feudal monarchy in the form of a caliphate. In the image to the left, we see, of course, Prince Victor Emmanuel of the Kingdom of Savoy, now a Duchy of Savoy, using the Swiss cross, as you can see there. And to the right is, of course, King Charlie. Because for our masters of Pharaoh's nobility, it doesn't matter if the feudal rule, vertical rule they're gonna get, if it's gonna be a caliphate or something else. And now apparently they have teamed up with the Oriental nobility of the Middle East. So they just say, well, let's have a caliphate. At least it's feudal and we will be the kings again. Of course, the dumb European slaves are not supposed to know what's really going on in order to stop an escalation of a potential insurgency of the dumb slaves. So they came up with that bogus story of a Gladio stay behind. Stay behind what? Well, the truth stayed behind, of course. And that's why, to the right at the bottom, in the official logo of the Gladio organization, it says in Latin, Silendo libertatum servo. And that means, by being silent, I preserve liberty. Whose liberty? Well, their liberty, of course. The bloke to the left, who was a high member of the P2. Who's silent? Well, again, that bloke to the left. And that cross you see there. Everything about Swaziland, which is the base of Pharaoh, it's all about silence. And it even says in the logo of that bogus Gladio organization, stay behind what? So here you can read about Gladio. Here it's in French, because only in French the crest of them with the Silendo Libertatum Servo to the right is being shown and not in English. And at the bottom you see Suisse P26. That means Switzerland P26. So I'll show it to you in English. There we go. I hope it fits. Yeah, it does. Okay, so Operation Gladio was the code name for clandestine stay behind. Oh, it's all nonsense, of course. I mean, they're using the Russians to scare us, and they're using us to scare the Russians. I mean, that's divide and rule. That's what it is, you know. So, here you see, to the right at the bottom, it says Switzerland. They were part of it. So then they're not neutral. I mean, it's just nonsense. They never were. They're on top of it all, you know. So here's Italy. There was the P2. I already showed that to you. And a lot of horrible things going on. Yeah, Belgium, a lot of murders. You can read it yourself. France, Germany, Greece, everywhere. I don't even know what happened there. Portugal, Turkey, Austria, West Switzerland, Finland, Spain, Sweden. Oh, there you go, Switzerland. In Switzerland, a secret force called P26. Well, I told you all about it. By coincidence, a few months before Giulio Andreotti's revelations, well, etc. And it was in Gstaad, remember? This guy here, I don't even, to the left at the bottom, I don't even want to pronounce his name. It's just a controlled opposition, you know. He never criticizes Switzerland. It's one of them, you know, always saying, oh, I'm whitewashing Switzerland. Another historian. And they all say Homie Ross is not the historian because he criticizes Switzerland. Then you can't be an historian, right? So it says a fifth column. You just read it yourselves. Here were the guys in Belgium of the stay behind Gladio. Here it says the Brabant killers, and here on top it said a total of 28 people died and 22 were injured. I already made a video on Gladio 16 years ago on one of my older channels. I don't know where it is, maybe I've taken it off. But anyway, I haven't talked about P26 yet, so that's maybe more important. Here it says, relation to the NATO stay-behind network. Yeah, Operation Gladio, it says. These cells were linked to former Nazis. Oh, man. I mean, what are they doing? They attack the Republic. Yes, the Republic is horizontal. There's a parliament, many guys who rule together, which is called horizontal. So who attacked them? Well, must be the vertical ones, eh? And vertically is a king. Not like in England, that's a constitutional monarchy, but an absolute monarchy. There's one guy, the king or the emperor, and he rules straight down, all the way down, which is called vertical. That's what it's all about. It says some more, the Belgian stay-behind network. Oh, well, it says on top, Gladio, killing a lot of people. And they just replaced Gladio at the very same time, you know. It's the same like the moment the Pharaoh's bug war ended, at the same time the Ukraine war started. You know, the very same day after it. There's not even a day in between. And it's the same with this Gladio terrorist attacks of the 80s. It ended, the moment it ended, suddenly you got all those terrorist attacks of the Islamist guys. But behind it are the same vertical ones. Only now they have teamed up with the vertical monarchies of the Middle East. And then using all the immigrants, you know, to put up their utopia feudal system for like half of the world, you know. Everything else but China, I suppose. By the way, only 3 months after I made the video on the P2 killer prince of Gstaad, he died in Geneva on February the 3rd, 2024. So here in this picture you can see his son, the Prince of Venice, Filiberto, standing in front of his tomb. And I guess that his son, the Prince of Venice, living in Gstaad, has become the new P2, the new Principe Due, or P2, and with a Swiss cross in his coat of arms. Because not long ago, the prince's ancestors were the kings of Swaziland, when from 1416 till 1860, the French-speaking part of Switzerland belonged to the House of Savoy, who still want their country back, thus conspiring through the various P for Prince organizations against the Templars' horizontal rule. So to the right you see the two dudes with the Swiss cross on their and a crown over it on their cloaks. It's all in marble. To the left you see the tomb with a crown on top of it. His father was the king of Italy until 1945. And it says Vittorio Emanuele. Victor Emmanuel. So Vittorio, it means he was victorious. Well, maybe not very much. And I think Emmanuel, it means loved by God. I'm not sure. Should look it up. You can look it up yourselves. And it says Duca di Savoia, the Duke of Savoy, Principe di Napoli, the Prince of Napoli. So the Victor Emmanuel, he was the Duke of Savoy, and his son, whom you can see here, standing here, he is the Prince of Venice. And Victor Emmanuel, he was the Prince of Napoli. Oh, I think I know someone who'd fit nicely in here with the other cloak and dagger boys and their Swiss cross mausoleum. So we've got P2, P13, P26, and there's PP, short for the alleged pedophile prince. Welcome back in the Middle Ages. I read all your comments and I saw some people asking me how to write me a mail and where to contact me. Well, it is quite easy. My email, swisstorture@gmail.com, is in the open and visible to all here on my Gure channel and in fact on all my channels. And here in the picture it says as well swisstorture@gmail.com. Only unfortunately, for security reasons, I'm not using my email at all at the moment, as it says here, the Swiss danger. Because a few weeks ago, now in 2024, the Swissies tried to eliminate me here in France. It was around midnight and dark without street lamps, looking for a place to put my tent, when suddenly behind me I heard someone say in Swiss German, "We will teach you now, once and for all, to call the Swiss police Nazis." In Swiss German that was, "Wir werden die jetzt eins für allemal lehren, nicht wieder unsere Schweizer Polizei und Behörde Gang als Nazis zu bezeichnen." I turned around and saw two men with guns standing in the dark. And before I could say something back, suddenly in this dark, deserted and forestal area, several cars came unexpectedly racing around the corner and down from the motorway, or highway as some call it. Two shots went off, and the sudden surprise gave me a very narrow time frame to step in the dark and hide. The cars had caught the two men in their headlights, and I saw them disappear. Immediately, the cars stopped, and an incredible amount of agitated men rushed out of the cars, swearing in French and Arabic, obviously thinking that they caught up in the middle of some French police action, whom apparently they had a severe grudge against. Nobody saw me, as it was dark, deserted and bushy. The Arab gang stayed for a few more minutes, pulling out their cell phones, announcing the presence of some strangely behaving cops, as it must have seemed to them, to the entire Arabic community of the area. And with screaming tires they left. I cautiously exfiltrated the area and the entire region, not using my phone nor email anymore, together with further consequent safety measures. If the man in the cars would have been French, no car would have stopped, as the French are more into running away. But these Arabs tend to behave in an opposite way and dive into it where the action is. Moreover, because usually Muslims, and in this case Arabs, go around in large groups, especially in the night. And normally, when I see Arabs and Muslims in general always sticking their nose in things happening, I think to myself, man, haven't you got anything better to do? Which I will never think again, as they saved me that night with that sort of nosy behavior, and I'm thankful for that and won't forget it. So yeah, you can write me, but I don't know when I will feel safe enough again to write you back, which in due time will happen again, I suppose. Although it might take a few weeks or maybe months due to the Swiss threat. And their already second assassination attempt by the Swiss Nazi police by the use of firearms. The first time was in the winter of 2011, which I already told you in another video years ago. Swaziland is murder incorporated, and there's no state and no authority in the world that does anything against it, because Swaziland is Pharaoh's neutral base of this world. I told you how the Swiss torture and murder people by code O2T, oxygen deprivation, in their prisons for political prisoners. Here you can read it. I already showed that many times, but for people who are new here, I need to show this again. But there will be some new information as well in this video, so don't worry. You know, they got murder factories, you know. They've murdered many, many people. Well, just look here in 2024 how Swaziland probably has the world's highest suicide rate in their prisons because of O2T, oxygen deprivation, and other Swiss murder techniques. And these people in these prisons, you know, they're most of all political prisoners. They're not even criminals. The real criminals are the Swiss banksters and the UNRWA Swiss director generals, and they don't go to prison. In my whole life, I've never seen so much evil as in Swaziland, where they've terrorized me and my family for 28 years now. The Swiss have plenty of murder factories to get rid of the people they don't like, as you could read here in the 2024 facts. One day the moment will come that you won't hear from me anymore. Then you'll know that the Swissies have executed their numerous murder threats. In the Western world dictatorship, the most dangerous thing to do, and it will get you burnt, is to open up your mouth, as Bill Cooper, Alan Watts, the Gstaad guy, and many others did, who are all dead now and eliminated by the octagon from the Alps. Why am I still alive? Is it luck or divine protection? Because statistically, I already should have joined the Bill Cooper Gstaad hit list. I think I'm still alive because the Swissies have hard time finding me. As I have no daily routine, sleep in the bushes and forests, changing places every night, have Faraday pouches for telephone and laptop, use VPN, and I can integrate fairly easy into the various European countries due to linguistical skills. Human dignity and intelligence of the individual versus the lies and organized terror of an entire state and its people. In this time and era, they have taken away our rights to defend ourselves, needing to take blow after blow, punch after punch, with the only option to run, as the Native American medicine man told that medium once, that my Indian name is Running Wolf. Or, in this very case, Running Rabbit, running from the evil magicians of the principality. And that's probably the difference, as Bill Cooper, Alan Watts, Gstaad, and Julian Assange didn't run, making them easy targets, the so-called sitting ducks. Here to the right, you see octagon here, and it says here, in case of whistleblower, break glass. And here's the gun behind the glass. So this is the octagon in the Alps. And here you see the Swiss flag with a lot of cartridges. And here's probably 9mm. This is a 308, I think. This is a 7.65, probably. And you know, it says that in America they have a lot of guns. The Americans have a lot of guns. But actually in Swaziland, they probably have the most guns in the world. And I'll tell you why. Because in America, not everyone has a gun. A lot of people, probably Democrats, they don't want to have a gun. But in Swaziland, everyone has a gun. It's even not allowed, it's illegal for a man not to have an assault rifle with bullets and fully automatic and everything. It's illegal, you know, because every man has to go into the army. So this is why actually Swaziland is the most armed nation in the world. Maybe in America, some people, you know, the statistics, they are falsified because some people, they have like 100 guns, like real gun nuts, you know. But then maybe half of the population, they don't even have a gun. So is America really the most gun-owned country in the world? No, it isn't. Because in Swaziland, every house has an assault rifle and probably also a handgun. So Swaziland really is the most, they have the most guns in the entire world. So the Swissies have a worldwide license to kill, and no authorities from any other state will ever stop them. Just as in 2001, 3 heavily armed Swiss cops shot a Frenchman with 18 bullets in the back in France and received full protection by the French authorities, who will always give the Swissies full license to kill in France. The Frenchman's name, murdered in France by Swiss cops, was Michel Hercouet, and I made this video about it. So the Swissies can just come in France and murder someone and get off with it, just as they tried with me a few weeks back. So here you can see his name, Michel Hercouet. Hercouet, he was a young man. He didn't get very old, thanks to the Swissies. So here's the title, and you can find it on my channel, Gatsenfrats. You can see it's from 2012, so that's 12 years ago. I didn't even get 2,000 views and only 3 comments, which you can read here. This was a nice guy, an Arab. I had contact with him. He also copied some of my videos. I told him that's okay. And they also terrorized him in Swaziland. So even the US State Department, they talk about it. So in August 2001, 2 police officers from Basel, which is in Swaziland, in French they call it Baal, you know, like Baalbek in Lebanon, Baal. And they shot 2 Swiss police officers, they shot and killed Michel Hercouet. Well, they Anglified the name here, his name is Michel. They wrote Michael, well, that's the English version. Just over the border in France. So 2 Swiss cops, they killed somebody in France. The unarmed Hercouet, so he was unarmed. And the cops, they got off with it, you know, they never went to prison, never had any problems. They got completely protected in France. Well, what do you want, you know, with the director of the human rights is a Swiss in Strasbourg. And this also happened in Alsace, and Strasbourg is also in Alsace. It happened not far away from Strasbourg. So it says in French, 18 balles dans le dos. He got 18 bullets in the back. Sur territoire français, on the French territory. And they talked about it everywhere. The Swiss, they have license to kill, just as they tried with me a couple of weeks back. And they know it. They know they can do with everything they want, and they get off with it. They just get away with it. Here you can see the typical French battle flag, the white flag. Here it says French battle flag with Macron. So you see, it's no use to go and ask for help at the French authorities. Together with the fact that I've already dropped 3 complaints against the state of Swaziland and its people at the French state attorneys, on which I never even had an answer. So here you can see it. The first time was in Boulogne-sur-Mer in 2014. It was before the terrorist attacks in Paris, and I had information. I could give them the names, because I infiltrated the Octagon, and I was there when Swiss industrials, they talked about doing terrorist attacks in France, and I could have told them all this, but they just didn't care. All Freemasons and all these justice departments. And then the second time, that was after the terrorist attacks in 2016. I thought, well, maybe something happened, you know, and I went to Saint-Étienne. Then never an answer. Then the third time, that was in between. There was also in 2014, because I had this information. I wanted to give him the information. As I already contacted the French police and everything, the government, I didn't get an answer. So I went back again on the March the 24th. So that was still before the terrorist attacks. We could have prevented it, you know, but they just didn't care. You know, it's the French white flag, you know. Here again, March 24th. I dropped a complaint here in Mende. Here it says Mende. Le parquet Mende. Yeah, so 3 times, and also dropped a complaint at the human rights in Strasbourg. My complaint was treated by a Swissie, Madame Easily, and at that time it was still the first director of the Human Rights Commission in Strasbourg. Well, it was a Swissie, and he was still there. I told you his name somewhere. I don't recall it now. And here you can see a Swiss flag. It's called. They have these vertical sort of flags. It's called a Knatterfahne. I have no idea what that means. Fahne, it means a flag, but my Knatter. Yeah, Knatter, it means like making a noise, like fireworks, But why? Maybe it makes a noise, like, in the wind, like, I don't know. But here you can see the colors red and white. Why? Well, because they're the colors of the Knights Templars. But why do it again? Because it's already in the flag here. Well, because it's the red house of Pharaoh and the white house. It's Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. And they know it. It's all there. They do it here again. And his name was like the director. His name was Joseph. I don't recall it. Funny enough, he went to see Putin, and a couple of weeks later, he died. Was probably another victim of Mr. Putin. So, and I tried everything, I tried everything. It's no use, Swissies can do whatever they want. They got complete license to kill. So I just recalled his name, Lucius Wildhaber. There he is. He was born in Basel, Switzerland. There's the flag. He was the first president of the European Court of Human Rights. And so how is it possible? Switzerland is not even part of the European community. How is this possible? That a Swissie is the president, and he was the president over 20 years, I think. That he was the president of the Human Rights Commission for 20 years in the capital of the European community, Strasbourg. How is this possible? Well, I told you. They control everything, the Swissies, It says, he died in 2020. I thought he died before. Or this is about Öcalan, or what? Right, it says, he died 2020. So he was the first president in what year? That was, it says here, in 1991. And then he was the president of the ECHR, the European Court for Human Rights, so that's 20 years altogether, And I was there. I dropped a complaint in the year 2001, and I even went there twice in 2002. So he was the president. So you want to know the answer? Negative, of course. They all protected Switzerland and Mrs. Easily. I remember that name for the rest of my life. It's a conspiracy, And so, as I just told you before, he went to Russia, see Putin, and he said he got poisoned there. Spasiba, товарищ. So here it says, I was poisoned by Russians, human rights judge says. In 2007, Russian officials yesterday dismissed Mr. Wildhaber's, Lucius Wildhaber, allegations as laughable and said there was no evidence he had been poisoned. And here in the official Russian thing here, there's a lot of, so that was in 2007 and he died in 2020. So Probably some sly Swissy move, because if the Russians would have really poisoned him, he would have been dead immediately, eh? He lived for another 13 years, eh? Спасибо, товарищ. Комитет государственной безопасности. Я почти не говорю по-русски. And especially now, after my last revealing video on the Templar Principality in the Alps and their involvement in literally everything and all major events of 2024, I know that Swissy will drastically increase their elimination efforts. And I hope you will understand that when I will disappear, my channels and videos will be terminated as well. And all will be as if nothing ever happened. Totally erased from history. At the moment, England is upset about an old story that happened last year, and we can immediately see the usual agitators playing out their divide and rule for the real masters, after their friend here created the whole situation. But what is really going on within the world of social engineering? Just look at the itinerary of what happened just before. Well, on June 1st, 2026, new allegations against PP here came out. So, in order to distract the attention from it, Pharaoh's nobility released the footage of this here the very next day of June 2nd. In order to distract attention in this typical case of social engineering of the dumb public. As usual, applying that same old technique, inciting strong emotions to get things going for them. Whereas, in fact, only the contrary, and maintaining a cool head with cold intellectual observations can possibly save us from our master's perfidious games. Just listen to Sun Tzu 2,500 years ago about striking back with a cold heart and by keeping an ice-cold mind. I quote, "It is the unemotional, reserved, calm, detached warrior who wins, not the hothead seeking vengeance and not the ambitious seeker of fortune." Sun Tzu. Accidentally, I got hold of these images here, where it says in the language of the enemy within that their work of infiltration, subsequent conquest, and oppression over the European peoples have been completed and succeeded. At the top of the image, we can see the keystone that for Pharaoh and their political wing of the three more sinners stands for the completion of their work. Here in their fresco or wall drawing, we can clearly see that above in the apex there is a keystone, also called capstone. As we are in a total dictatorship, I'm forced to use code words in this video that I explain in this video here on the same channel called Anti-Censorship Vocabulary. You should also watch the Pharaoh show that I made 20 years ago, in which I revealed many of the secret symbols of the enemy within. So I don't need to repeat all that in this video. So you see, it's in two parts, the Pharaoh show. And I uploaded it 15 years ago. I made it 20 years ago. And it's on the other channel, Gstaad, my first channel, where I started on YouTube 16 years ago. The pharaohs who rule over the European peoples have always carved their secret messages through frescoes and hieroglyphs into stone, because stone withstands eternity, and there wasn't any and not enough paper. The pharaonic timeline starts below with the bar or beam that represents hieroglyph number N37, representing a pond or a body of water. So here I'll show you the website of the hieroglyph N37 on Gardner's sign list. Here it says Gardner's sign list is a list of common Egyptian hieroglyphs, or as the Americans say, hieroglyphs, compiled by Sir Alan Gardner. It is considered a standard reference in the study of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. So A is man and his occupations, B woman and her occupations, C anthropomorphic deities, D parts of the human body, E mammals, or etc. Let's have a look at where the N is. There we go, N. And N37, there it is. We see below N37 where we see the beam, and which, as in the fresco on a wall in Europe somewhere, and where it says a pool. So this is very interesting and very important to understand. So according to these pharaohs themselves, in how they depict the drowning of Pharaoh, by using not a hieroglyph for the sea or an ocean, no, they're using the hieroglyph for a pool. So this means that according to their own story, how they wrote it down in the fresco on that wall, it says that Pharaoh drowned in a pool, not in an ocean, as Hollywood always depicts it, as Pharaoh drowning. It was like in the Red Sea and the sea opening up. No, it's not possible. And I ask you, what is the only water that opens up and closes itself afterwards when somebody's drowned in it? Yeah? Anybody smart enough? Well, in the marshes, of course, a swamp, which is like a pool. So Pharaoh, he drowned in a swamp or in the marshes with his army. And then when they all went down, the water closed again, just as it says in the Bible. I mean, don't imagine yourselves like the sea opening up because a bloke with a stick opened it up, and no, it didn't work like that in a pool. And they know their own history. They know it. They know what really happened. Here, it happened last year in 2025 in a Lithuanian swamp where 4 US soldiers, they drowned in the swamps. Here the earth and the water open up and everybody disappears, and then everything closes up again, as if nothing ever happened. You can read about it. 4 US soldiers deployed to Lithuania for Operation Atlantic Resolve tragically died in March 2025 when the M88A2 Hercules armored recovery vehicle became submerged in a peat bog during a training exercise near the Belarus border. It took several days, to get them out of the marshes. And, the earth opening up and closes again afterwards, as if nothing ever happened. And here, once more, the hieroglyph number N37. I don't think there's another language. No, there isn't. So it's only in French. Hiéroglyphe égyptien N37. Because of Jean-Paul Champollion, the French being there, the Rosetta Stone and all this. And and here you can see the image of it, and here in hieratic, which is almost like demotic, and here are the N38 and the N39, which is almost the same. And it says here in French, lac, étang, pièce d'eau, jardin, bassin. Lac, it's a lake, almost the same word. Étang, it's also a body of water, a little bit like the marshes, not entirely. Bassin, like a swimming pool. Pièce d'eau means a body of water. So this is where Pharaoh drowned. Not in the ocean or the Red Sea. Don't believe Hollywood, please. Looks nice, of course. Although, Pharaoh drowning in the marshes, it looks pretty nice as well. Here you see it, the same hieroglyph as on the wall. It's all over. And here's some more, together with other hieroglyphs. So here's some more in English. So on the left-hand side, it says pull, and it says N37 and the N38 and the N39. If we look at the right side in the image, we can see the same beam as in the fresco on the wall. Here are some examples. Before there was interesting. In French it says inondation. It means a flooding. And the seasonal floodings of the River Nile, they were quite important for the pharaohs. They had, I think they had about 9 floodings or something. And here you see the dock, also with the body of water. And there's some more, you can look at it yourselves. I thought this one also interesting. In the middle, you see the N37 hieroglyph with all the fishes, the ducks, and all the water animals in it. And maybe they should have put Pharaoh in it as well, eh? In the history book called the Bible, it says that Pharaoh and his army disappeared in the sea when Moses opened the sea with his stick and then closed it again. But Pharaoh also had sons, cousins, uncles, brothers, etc. So what happened with all those, as not all of them drowned in the sea? Only one Pharaoh drowned in the sea. In old scriptures, the language is often very poetic, where the word sea is often used as a sea of people, which even today is still being used for a huge crowd. In German and French, the words are ein Menschenmeer, eine Menschenflut, une marée de gens, literally meaning an ocean of people, for a huge crowd or humanity as a whole. So Pharaoh never drowned, but disappeared within the sea of peoples. They are amongst us, a fact which here finding expression in this pharaonic fresco as ultimate proof. Then, in the fresco on the right side, going upwards, we see 9 balls, of which 3 in white, towards the top, and 6 downwards in black, resembling roots, that in fact symbolize their pharaonic great Ennead of the 9 original pharaonic gods on the left side. These 9 altogether on the right-hand side are in a domed house in black that is called the Per-A in Demotic, meaning the big house, where etymologically the word Pharaoh derives from, and which is a noble house or aristocratic bloodline, as Pharaoh's nobility rules over the entire globe and over all peoples. In the 6 black balls, also the inversed keystone can be seen, as at this point in history their work wasn't fully accomplished yet. They had the capstone, but couldn't successfully apply it yet. For Germany, for instance, Pharaoh's pyramid hierarchy or hierarchy would resemble this here, which they call the concept of 3, often being represented through a circle, and for a circle the compass is needed. Therefore, the concept of 3 used to represent the compass of the 3 more sinners. Then, after that, the line goes straight upwards, covering about 2000 years, culminating at the top of the apex, the keystone as crowning of their work, that must be interpreted figuratively, metaphorically, after the image of the last stone of a building, being the building of the oppression over the European peoples, that the work of total control over their dumb European slaves after 2000 years finally has been accomplished. So here in the image, both on the left side as at the right side, we can see the capstone or keystone at the apex on top of the dome after the 2000 years. And the pharaonic fresco is possibly a few hundred years old and likely on the wall of a former lodge of the Freemore Sinners. So here we can read about the keystone, and it says here, keystone or capstone is the wedge-shaped stone at the apex of a masonry arch, or typically a round-shaped one at the apex of a vault. In both cases, it is the final piece placed during construction and locks all the stones into position, allowing the arch or vault to bear weight. So here we see an example, just as we saw before. So if you see like on a wall like the fresco, don't think it's art. It never is art. You know, it all carries a message, not for you, but amongst each other. So here you can see at the apex, on top of the door, you see another capstone or keystone where the dome is. And so it is both in architecture, as you can see here, and it's also metaphorically. You can read it yourselves. It means like it's the completion of a work or an idea or a conquest. In this case, in most cases. So here you see some more examples of keystones. You find it about everywhere. So, you know, in some towns more than in others. So here's another one, a keystone. Looks like some emperor. Royals. Here's another one, 1683. 1683, that's just after the 30-Year War. It ended in 1648. Very important date, the 30-Year War. Here's some more. So apparently that's also called the keystone in the foot. So here's some more. Everywhere. And here. I mean, for the construction, as you can see here, they don't need to do this. It all has a meaning. So here we can read about the meaning for the Freemore Sinners of a keystone. You can see that number 3, key Masonic metaphors. It's a symbol of completion and progress. But I start at the top here. I'll read it for you. In Freemasonry, the keystone is the central wedge-shaped stone at the top of an arch. Metaphorically, it represents the completion of a journey, and a work, a job is also a journey. The glue that, like the 2000 years, the glue that holds a group or project together, and the ultimate realization of personal integrity. That means power. For them, the realization of personal integrity, that means power, going at the apex of a hierarchy at the top. So you can all read it yourselves. And I go to 3 again, and there's the 1, the symbol of completion and progress. In the Freemore Sinner system, etc. It's also at number 2 here, it's a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. What does that mean? That means, it's like satanic. Between the physical and the spiritual, for them it means satanic. Right? An arch gracefully reaches upward, the keystone being the highest point, represent the apex of a person's personal arch, building a life of virtue, strength, and balance. Metaphorically, it asks individuals to shape themselves into living stones that bridge the gap between their daily earthly lives and higher philosophical or spiritual ideas. It says here they're hiding something. There's a bridge between their daily earthly lives, how they appear, their daily appearance, being nice and all that, and the higher spiritual ideas, which is satanic. Look at the Epstein thing and all this, and all the politicians and all the wars going on. It can only be satanic anyway, if they talk about spiritual. So, again, the keystone, metaphorically, it means it's a symbol of completion. At the 3, there's the one that says the symbol of completion and progress. Their progress, it needed 2,000 years before they could reach, total control over the European peoples in their conquest over Europe. And they make frescoes about it, of which they think only they can understand it. In most cases, that's true. So let's have Homie Ross make an exception to the rule here then. I can imagine that this proof of the existence of the enemy within and plastical exhibition of their perfidious intent will arouse anger with possible vandalism amongst some of you. But these important proofs of the pharaonic conquest of Europe should not be destroyed, because they serve as a body of evidence and should therefore be protected and preserved till the end of days and beyond. The enemy within rules anonymously and invisibly, so therefore information is our only weapon. And this pharaonic fresco that tells the timeline of their subjugation over Europe is pure information in itself. So please preserve and diffuse the information for which the pharaonic fresco was conceived initially, to spread this information amongst themselves. But now, so be it, we will turn the matter irrevocably around.